Okay, if we have anybody here that's a little early, why don't you go ahead and type in the comments so that I know you're here. That way I can check to make sure comments are working. Yeah, it's almost 8 o'clock. We're going to wait a couple of minutes, let a few more people join us. For those of you that are already online, if you could enter a comment, let me know you're here. That way I can check and make sure the comment system is working, and I can answer your questions if you have any later on. Okay, we're going to wait just about one more minute, let some more people join us, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. It's my intention to try to wrap this up in 30 minutes or less, depending on comments that we might receive during the course of the broadcast. Welcome to the Gem State Challenge referee meeting. We have a lot of brand new referees that will be working their very first tournament this weekend, and so this information should be particularly helpful for them. We also have a lot of referees who may be working only their second or third tournament and need the reinforcement of the things we try to do at tournaments. For the rest of you who are veterans, I'm sure there'll be something in here for you as well. So let me go ahead and switch over here so I can have my screen up here and do the presentation. All right. First thing, it's very important. We cover this sort of thing weekly during our regular season, but it's really important at a tournament that you know the rules of competition, because they're often different from the stuff you're doing week in and week out during league games. Here is the address for the Gem State rules. So I will leave it up here long enough for you to copy it down if you don't have it. The link is also in the tournament section on Arbiter, so you can get it there. And like most things, when it's an IYSA tournament, you can go directly to idahoyouthsoccer.org in their tournament area and get the rules there. The thing that we seem to have the biggest problem with during tournaments and also week to week are the various substitution rules. So for a tournament, you have to know these substitution rules because people will get all over you if you try to enforce the wrong rules. This is why I emphasize that referees should certainly read the rules prior to the tournament, but should also print the rules. I think they're only 4 pages long, and bring a copy and have a copy with you in your gear bag at the tournament, just in case a question comes up. It's also a handy reference to have with you during a pregame. I always have copies in the tent, but it really is bad form to come to the referee tent and say, oh, I forgot to read the rules. Can I borrow a copy? So anyway, for substitutions, pretty obvious. Everybody can substitute after a goal. After goal kicks, both teams can substitute. That's pretty standard in the leagues we do. On your possession, if your teammates are up ready to sub, they can sub on their possession. If one team is up ready to sub, the other team can also sub on the same stoppage. Does that make sense to everybody? If the team in possession is up and wants to sub, the other team can also sub. At the referee's discretion, obviously, if the coach is called on the field, is going to take an injured player off, you're going to allow them to substitute if they want to, and you certainly will allow that. Now, it's your discretion if you're going to allow the other team to substitute at the same time. You know, this is not a high-profile tournament, so do what's best for the game. I would allow both to substitute, but it's your discretion. It's your choice. Obviously, at halftime, both teams can substitute. So shouldn't be any big issues here. The one you have to remember is corner kicks. No substitutions on corner kicks during the tournament. In the rules, there is a concussion policy. I'm not going to go over it here in detail. It's something you need to read. Obviously, if you have a concussed player, that player is going to require a medical release to be allowed back into the match you're doing. That's rarely going to be an issue because once they go to the medical tent, if they are truly concussed, they probably aren't coming back to the game. They're going to hold them in the medical tent. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? I hope so. Check-in. This is something that always gets referees, particularly brand new referees who don't understand that tournaments are handled very differently from Saturday games. We have a referee tent at the tournament, and referees must come to the referee tent and check in before each of their assignments. And that amount of time is 45 minutes before your first game of the day. And I'm very serious about this 45 minutes. People say, well, why? That seems like that's a long time before my game. Well, it really isn't. Because remember, you're going to have full crews on all of your games at this tournament, even down to U10. So you have to have time to have a pregame with your crew. You also have to make sure that you know the colors of the two teams that are playing, the colors of the two goalkeepers, so that you can have the proper color uniform to wear. And I realize that most of our referees only have one color, maybe two. However, I keep a bag full of spares in the referee tent so that if you have a color conflict, you have time to take care of it. And if you're showing up 15 minutes before the game, you just don't have time to do all the things that you have to do during a tournament. So everybody needs to be there 45 minutes before your first game. If you have subsequent games that day, you check in 30 minutes before those games. When you're doing back-to-back games, obviously you can check in for those at the same time. No big deal there. The check-in chart that I keep, and it's a great big chart, sits on my table in the referee tent, is the pay sheet. And if you have not checked in on time, I mark the pay sheet that you're not there or you're late and you won't be paid. I know that sounds harsh to some people, but it is important that you're there on time so that we can get everything done and everything flows as it should. This goes a long way, too, to making sure games start on time. For those that have done tournaments in the past, we've for years been used to having the referee tent and the headquarters tent up on the hill overlooking fields 5 and 6. That's not true for the Gem State tournament. We aren't using fields 5 and 6. As a result, they decided to move the headquarters tent, the vendors area, and the referee tent to an area just south of field 10 south. So don't get confused. Make sure you know where you're going when you get there so that you're there on time and can get checked in. Okay? So this map, field map, is available on idahousoccer.org. Again, under the Gem State Tournament section, you can download a copy of it for yourself if you need to. Pre-game conference. Most of the referees at this tournament have probably never participated in a pre-game conference. Yet it's one of the most important things a referee crew does prior to a match. And I encourage every referee team to conduct a pre-game conference. If you have an experienced referee on the crew, maybe as they are, they can help guide, what a true pre-game conference should consist of. So anyway, USSF has a great video on the pregame conference. I'm going to show it here in a second. And these are some of the things that you need to be aware of and you should cover in your pregame conference with your referee crew.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. When working games as part of a referee team, it is important that each official be consistent when applying the laws of the game and managing the behavior of players and coaches. The referee team must also be fully aware of the need to communicate with one another
Okay, I hope that makes sense to everybody. If not, and if you're a new or newer referee and you're unsure about this, please ask, and we will help you with that in the referee tent or even beforehand. As part of your pregame responsibilities, just like during our league games, you will be checking team rosters, and the rosters will have an approval stamp of some kind. I don't know precisely what that's going to be at this point, but sometimes it's a smiley face, sometimes it's a stamp that actually says approved, but there will be something on it to indicate that they are playing with an approved roster. Player cards are not going to be required during your check-in. That should speed things up tremendously. Player cards are checked as part of the team check-in, so don't worry about player cards. If you have the unlikely event of a player being sent off, then you can, if it's okay, go to the coach and get the card after the game. If you feel uncomfortable doing that, that's okay. You can still come, do your paperwork in the tent, and we'll have IYSA handle it because they'll know who the players are and they'll get a hold of the coach and make sure that that player does not play in the next game. Okay. This is the blue game card. Everybody sort of laughs at this point in my presentations because they know what I'm going to say. Every center referee, when they check in at the referee tent, will be given a blue game card for their particular match. And this game card must be returned to the referee tent with the correct score on it. I don't care who scored or the minute or any of that other information. The only thing we care about is that the final score is recorded on this card and it is correct. On Sunday, if you are the center referee, game cards must be returned after every single match. The reason for that is the teams that play the early games at 8 o'clock, 9:20, the winners and losers of those games determine when they play in consolation or championship games. So we have to have those cards back right away. Now, most of the fields, they will probably be mentors or field monitors, I should say, and or IYSA personnel circulating on carts to help collect those, particularly on Sunday. On Saturday, when you're doing back-to-back games, it's not as critical to get the cards back after each game, although again, you're probably going to have IYSA personnel circulating and collecting them, particularly if you're far away from the referee tent. Please do not take one of these game cards home with you. That seems to happen every single tournament, and that's a big no-no. It's your responsibility. Make sure that it is returned to the referee tent. In some situations, that may mean you have to hand it to one of your ARs and say they have to run up to the tent because you're getting ready to start the next game. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to everybody. Now, how do we fill one of these out? This is the top of it, and when you receive your game card, it will have the white label up in the upper left-hand corner. That label gives you all the information about your game, the starting time, which field it's on, the level, and not shown on this particular version, but will also give you the duration of each half, 25 or 30 minutes, and the names of the two teams involved. Now all this information and everything on this card is here to help you make sure that you turn in a correct score. As long as I have been assigning tournaments, we have yet to have a tournament where all of the game cards are returned correctly. In other words, there's at least one and sometimes half a dozen or more game cards that are turned in with the score incorrect. And that could simply be reversed, which is just as bad as having it wrong. So here are a couple of hints for you. Fill in the colors of the home and the away team, their jerseys. We often lose track of the names of the teams when at tournaments because we do so many games, but we tend to remember jersey colors. And if we have to ask somebody else about it later on, your assistant referees or, a spectator or something, the colors will help. So that's your first check to make sure you get things correct. The upper right-hand corner is where you put the score. Large Arabic numbers, please. I don't need Roman numerals and I don't need tick marks. I do need the numbers to be correct, and you double check and make sure they are not reversed. It's a good idea to double check with your assistant referees so that the entire crew comes up with the same score and agrees on which team was the winning team. Finally, if you do have a winner, please circle the name of the winning team on the white label. So you'll have 3 different ways to make sure that you get the score correct. And usually this is just a situation if you take an extra 30 seconds and make sure everything goes okay. Too often I see referees hurry, 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 hurry. They're filling it out, they're not paying attention, and they're throwing it on the on my desk there on the referee tent, and invariably that's when we have mistakes. Slow down, take your time, and get the game card correct. All right. Very important. Our time slots are very tight in this tournament. So you got to start your game on time. There's no excuse for having a late starting time. I know doing U10s and U11s in some cases is like herding cats, but that's your responsibility. Get the check-in done off the field well ahead of time. Teams do not have to warm up on the field, but it's up to the referee to communicate to the coaches in clear and concise terms. Coach, as soon as this game is done on this field, I want your teams on the field, ready to go. We are starting immediately. Because if our last games are scheduled to start at 5:20 and suddenly now they're not starting until 6 or 6:30, we start running into a lot of problems. And that can happen when just one game in the morning gets started late. So please make sure your games start on time. Obviously, make sure the games end on time. And that should be easy to do since there is no stoppage time in any of our games. And that includes, I know, major injuries and things like that, but your clock continues to run. And if there's some problem, we'll let IYSA, the tournament officials, deal with it administratively. It's not your issue. Start and stop the games on time. Semifinals and finals, we don't have any overtime in this tournament. Everything in those games that need a winner, and those are just the semifinals and finals, you're going to go straight to kicks from the mark. So if you're a center referee and you're assigned to a semifinal or final match, please make sure you have reviewed your kicks from the mark procedure. And there are lots of good videos. There are videos on USSF. Ask questions. Be comfortable in this procedure because you may have to run it. All right. A couple of things not to forget. Sunscreen. You can still get burned out there, and you're going to be out there all day for most of you. So don't forget sunscreen. Please bring a water bottle of some kind. We will have Gatorade and water in the referee tent, but it will be in the big 5-gallon Gatorade jugs, and you'll have to fill your container to take it with you out to the field. So don't show up and say, "Oh, I don't have anything to fill up with," because you're going to be out of luck. So please bring your water bottle. In the referee tent, we will also have snacks like fruit and bagels, sometimes granola bars and things like that. And I'm told that we may, at lunchtime on Saturday and Sunday, we may have pizza available for everybody. So take that into consideration. Of course, there are also food vendors. I don't know which ones that'll be there this time, or you can plan on bringing something to eat if you so desire. And finally, I always tell everybody, have fun. This is a tournament where you should learn and you should have fun. And we call it a no tolerance tournament because we don't really want to put up with all the stuff that goes on with coaches and everything yelling. Don't tolerate that. If you have a coach that's out of control or a sideline that's out of control, deal with it. And a lot of it will stop if you do. So that's that. So hopefully that gives you everything you need to know. Our games start Friday at 5:30. And again, first thing on Saturday at 8 a.m. I'll be in the referee tent certainly no later than 7 a.m. Getting ready for you to check in. I don't see any comments, so I really don't have anything to answer at this point. If you do have questions that pop up at anything that you've seen, shoot me an email or a text, and I will deal with that. And finally, I still have one 1040 game available on Saturday morning. It's an AR. I can't remember the level. It's on Arbiter. You can see it there that I do need to fill. So if anyone's interested in that, shoot me an email, send me a text so we can fill up the tournament. And thank you for everyone. And we will see you out at Simplot this weekend. Thanks a lot.